In this video, I'm going to talk about how to get hardback copies of your book printed at a reasonable cost. At least that's the title. That's what people often ask me because it's difficult to get hardcovers of your book printed at a reasonable cost for self-publishing authors in a way that makes sense, which is why it's probably not a good idea. But because a lot of authors are still trying to do it, here are my thoughts on hard copies. Basically, when you print on demand means you upload your files to a printing service. When someone orders the book, they will print the book and send it. That makes a lot of financial sense for most indie or self-publishing authors because you don't have to take a big risk on publishing your books yourself. However, there aren't so many print-on-demand companies that do hardcover books. Lulu does, but Lulu is pretty expensive, so a hardcover book might cost like $25, and Lightning Source does also. But again, the reason that most authors use Lightning Source or Ingram Spark is because of returnability and also because of the big discount. So they may set the book at like 60% and offer returnability, which I wouldn't do because it puts you at huge financial risk. But some authors will want to do it that way so that bookstores and libraries have the possibility of ordering books from them. I did it that way. I think every first-time author, when you start doing your research, that's what you want to do, so you figure out how to do it that way. But it does not make financial sense. What will usually happen is you'll spend a lot of money and time and effort to get the files sorted out. CreateSpace is really easy to use because they're a little less picky with the design files, but Ingram Spark is a lot more picky, and you need a good designer who knows what they're doing to make files that will pass through Ingram Spark vetting system, and you have to pay every time you upload or make changes to the files. So that already means it's more difficult to use Ingram Spark. So if you want to use Ingram Spark for hardcover books, that's fine, but you'll be spending more time to set it up. The books will be really expensive, like $25 each, sometimes more. And so you won't sell very many. So it doesn't make a lot of financial sense because it's unlikely that you'll sell many books. So if you spend $1,000 extra bucks making your books available in hardback, but you only sell like 10 a year, that's not a very sound financial decision. It can be worthwhile. I said in an earlier video, sometimes, for example, if you're sending out copies of your book to real reviewers and you want to give them the coolest, most professional version possible, you want a fancy hardcover, that's fine, but it costs you like $25. It won't cost you that much, but it will cost you to send out the hardback with shipping and everything, and that's just too much to pay for reviews. You might send out 10 or 20 copies of those and it'll cost you $500, and you might get a couple of reviews. There are much easier ways to get more reviews and spend much less money. So that's why I personally don't do hardcover for my books anymore, and I don't really recommend it. If you already have the paperback files, it's not a huge problem to turn them into hardback files. Usually it's just, there's a difference in the paper width probably because of the spine and the binding, and also there's flaps on the outside of the paperback copy that are about 2.5 inches, I'm pretty sure. So even if you like took your back cover art, because your front cover is probably going to have a person or something on it, if you take the back cover, which is probably just a color landscape, and you just cut out a 2.5 inch section and add it to both sides of your book cover, that might kind of work for a hardback. It's not a huge problem. It's extra effort that I don't think you need to be spending because hardbacks really shouldn't be your concern anyway. I said also in a previous video, you might expect to sell or to make about 10% of what you make from your ebook sales. So if you sell and you make $100 a month from your ebooks, you might make $10 a month from your print books. In my case, I make probably like $200 or $300 a month from my print books and like $6,000 or $7,000 from my ebook. So partly is that's just because I don't focus on my print books. I make them available in paperback. I don't sell them really hard. Some people argue if you have your ebook and your paperback and your hardback all set up on Amazon, it makes you look like a more traditional published author, which is more enticing for readers. I don't think readers actually care. Readers, first of all, will look at your cover and then your description, your blurb. They have to want the book first. If they want the book, they might look at the pricing options, but they're probably going to buy the ebook because most readers, they will buy your content in the cheapest available format. The reason hardback works for traditional publishers is that they can charge a lot more. So it might cost like $3 to print a paperback and $5 to print a hardback, but they can only charge $15 for the paperback and they can charge $25 for the hardback. So they usually put out the hardback first because there's a bigger profit margin, and that's also why they don't want to give out the ebook too early. They don't want to put out the paperback too early because it's cheaper. It'll cost less. They'll have less revenue from that. So what they tend to do is put out the hardback and maybe the ebook copy around the same price, and the ebook copy will be really expensive because they don't really want to make a couple dollars from the ebook. They want to make $7 or $8 from the hardback. But that's a total different business model than you have as a self-publishing author. So you really need to be focused on the versions of your product that don't cost you a lot to produce, don't take any extra time or effort to deliver or to send, and that's gonna be ebooks. So I only focus on ebooks. It's a personal choice because it's less effort and it earns me more money. Like I said, when I was starting, I was more focused on getting my paperbacks right, getting my hardbacks right. I spent a lot of time and effort and money on all that stuff and sending out books to reviewers. None of those things I think are good ideas for self-publishing authors, but that's something a lot of self-publishing authors do the first time. That's kind of what everybody does the first time, and then they realize it was a lot of effort and they spent more than they made. So generally the first book you spend too much money and then you learn some things, and then it gets easier to start cutting down costs and to earn more with your writing. So that's why I think the question of where can you get hardbacks published at a reasonable price is kind of the wrong question. I don't really think that should be your focus. I will mention, though, another publishing company that does print on demand that has high quality products is Clay's Publishing. I've talked with them a few times. They are able to make, for example, really nice covers with embossing or foil or gold stamp or something. Even like, what's the word? Spot varnish, which is a kind of gloss over only certain portions of the cover. Those are ways that traditional publishers are standing out from self-published books. And self-published books now look self-published just because they don't have fancy effects like that. So I might, in theory, sometimes make a special collector's edition of a book and get it printed really nicely, but it will cost more and I'll probably lose money on it, but it might be nice to send out to a few really big reviewers. I wouldn't do this starting out, but for example, when my book gets up to like 500 reviews and it's selling really well, then I could send a really nice copy to some reviewers and say, hey, this is my most popular book. It's doing really well. It has all these reviews. And I'd send them a really nice copy to kind of pique their interest. I wouldn't invest in that kind of stuff when you're starting out. I would focus on getting your reviews. I'd focus on getting your book to readers the cheapest and easiest way possible, with the least amount of resistance. And that's probably going to be free ebooks, which is a different topic, but generally free ebooks are much easier to get in the hands of readers who will start reading them. If you don't have any reviews, that's kind of the way to go. Or you can get reviews by working really hard. I have another video about that. So those are kind of my thoughts about hardbacks. It's not something I recommend, but it's probably something you're going to want to do if you're a first-time author and you don't know any better, which is totally fine. It's kind of fun to make some that are on your shelf that you can, give out to friends and family. That may be something that you want to do. But anyway, it's not something I recommend, and I think it's fine to just go with a paperback and get a paperback version done and kind of forget about the hardback. I would just focus on CreateSpace and print paperback copies, but that's a personal choice. So you may decide that you want to do hardbacks. If so, I would probably use Ingram Spark or Lightning Source, even though, like I said, it's an effort and it will take some time to get everything working. That's probably your best option price-wise.